When I was on sabbatical, I did a lot of solo traveling, which I love. I also intentionally planned a couple of trips with group travel organizations. The best experience I had on one of those trips was on a big boat with a couple thousand people on it, where a small group of women built community through their generosity. Now, the organization invited people traveling alone to make friends at dinner with a section where solo travelers could eat together. There was a small group of friends who sat in that section every night and invited people traveling solo to sit with them. Everyone was welcome. Each night, they collected new people into their raucous group of big laughter. One of the women had a question for the table every night, some variation on, "Tell us your story." Sometimes it was a funny question, sometimes a tender one, but it was always designed to elicit stories in which people could introduce themselves and get to know one another. Each evening, the stories came out and the group grew. It became a group of friends rather than a collection of solo travelers sharing a meal together. The small group of friends who started this practice inspired me with their generosity and their inclusion. They had arrived on the big boat already in a friend group, but each night they intentionally opened their space of connection and joy and laughter to people who were traveling alone. They never reached a point where they were good. They didn't have a "my needs are met, we don't need any more new people" moment. I was an early addition to the group, and I sat with them every night. One night, I was the first one to dinner, an unusual experience, and I grabbed the typical table. A brand new person came up and asked to sit with me as I was sitting there by myself with 9 empty chairs, and I hesitated. The group had gathered as many friends as there were seats at the table. So not only was my bucket already full, and my needs were met, but the table was literally full, or at least it was about to be. I knew the right answer. Of course this person was welcome to sit with us, but in my heart I was like, if she sits down, then one of my friends won't be able to. I saw her face when I hesitated, and I scrambled, saying, "Oh, no, of course, please sit down. I just have people coming, and it's going to be tight, but we'll make room." And things were awkward for a minute. But as the rest of the group slowly trickled in, everyone else made it clear that they were delighted to welcome the new person at the table. People scooched and made room to add an extra chair, and we had a lovely dinner and a new friend. There is within a human instinct to be like, "I'm good. My needs are met, my bucket's full. I don't need to make room for new people." It's an instinct that is in me. But not only does it stop a group from growing, it fails to be generous to others in the way that we ourselves experienced generosity. If the group had stopped growing before each of us had arrived, we never would have gotten to experience it. If the group had said, "Sorry, the table is full," when I walked up, I wouldn't have had that group of friends that generously welcomed me in their community. Community is a fundamental human need. It's crucial to our well-being. It's even crucial to our survival, our health as human beings. Studies have linked loneliness to significantly lower rates of mental and physical health, even to the point of increasing the likelihood of premature death. In May of this year, the Surgeon General of the United States published an advisory about the U.S. epidemic of loneliness, which said that loneliness and social isolation have the equivalent health effect of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Countering that loneliness, becoming connected in a community, is better for your well-being than exercises. The kinds of connections that we need as human beings go beyond having close family or friends. We also need the further out social connections that situate us within a community. Human beings embedded in a community are happier and healthier than those who are isolated, and they are even happier and healthier than those who have close social ties, but not extended ones. Feeling a part of something, feeling known in, and a sense of belonging in a larger social structure is fundamental to our human health and well-being. The poet John O'Donohue writes, "When we love, we leave our separate solitudes and come toward union where we complement each other. It is this ancient desire in every heart to discover and come home that awakens and activates its capacity for love and belonging. There are certain things that can only happen to us in solitude, and life needs a rhythm of solitude in order to experience those things. But the experience of self-discovery, psychological integration, and spiritual growth can only happen to us when our desire draws us out of our shells and towards the precarious and life-giving sanctuary of one another's hearts." We need each other, and we need one another in larger groups than nuclear families or one-on-one friendships. Human beings need community. It saves us. Building community, though, that takes work. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes intentionality, it takes showing up. An organization can create the structure for community's possibility, the opportunity, the tools for people to come and weave community into reality. But it is the people, it is you, who do that weaving. People must choose to be generous with their resources in order to build community. People must choose to give their time and their effort and their heart in order to build community. And when we do that, we create something that's larger than us, a being with organism, with a life and a joy of its own. In the book Slow Church, authors Christopher Smith and John Pattison write about slowing down to focus on relationships and the callings of each of our hearts and the ways that we hold one another through life. They quote Carl Honoré describing the slow movement which has extended to a variety of facets of life: slow food, slow gardening, slow parenting, slow design, slow art. Fast and slow are not just rates of change, says Honoré. They are shorthand for ways of being. They are shorthand for philosophies. Fast is busy, controlling, hurried, analytical, impatient, quantity over quality. Slow is the opposite: calm, careful, intuitive, unhurried, patient, reflective, quality over quantity. Slow is about making real and meaningful connections with people, culture, work, food, everything. I remember the first service when we came back to church after the pandemic shut down. It was the Christmas Eve service of 2021. Now, Christmas Eve is one of my very favorite services, and I'm often moved to tears by the music and the pageantry, the candles and the stories. But on that first in-person Christmas Eve service since we shut down, it was the ushers who brought me to tears. As they gathered in the back, like they always do, for every service, two at the head of each aisle, holding the collection plates in hand, I was deeply moved. Luckily, Dina was leading the verbal part of that service because I almost couldn't keep it together. It was the ushers' constancy, their steady, generous, loving service every Sunday, but also Christmas Eve. I mean, we hadn't been to church in almost 2 years, but call church and the ushers are like, yep, I'll be there. And they were ready as ever, gathering at the back of the sanctuary, collection plates in hand to collect the offering, and I was overcome. It's that kind of generosity that creates community. It's showing up for one another again and again in the solo traveler section to hear one another's stories, at the back of the sanctuary, holding the offering plates, downstairs with our youngest members, showing up with a meal or a ride for someone who needs a little bit of help this time. It's listening and loving and the circles of care that hold us. Community is built through slow relational work. It's steady. It focuses on relationship, and it requires generosity from all of us. Veteran civil rights and social justice organizer Grace Lee Boggs had a sign hanging in her home that read, "Building community is to the collective as spiritual practice is to the individual." Grace Lee Boggs organized her entire life, and she hosted entire communities of organizers like mine. She was mentor to many, and she taught that we must practice community as devotionally as we tend to our inner souls. It takes attention, it takes effort, it takes commitment, and yes, devotion to create community. Loneliness is at an epidemic level in this country. People are struggling to hold it together, trying to manage the stress and loss that is endemic to life in a late capitalist world that tries to convince you of the lie of the lone wolf and rugged individualism. But you do not have to be alone. You don't even have to get into a boat in the middle of the ocean to find community. We've created one together right here, and all it needs is your participation, your generosity, your loving commitment to keep it going, your willingness to make space for one more at the table, to keep it growing. Now, church is designed as a community that holds and loves people right here, right now, and celebrates and welcomes newcomers. It's here for you. And in order for it to work, you need to be here for others that come after you. Like the group of friends on the boat, we have a core of people who are setting the tone, but every single person, every new member, every new arrival at the table becomes part of building the community and growing the culture of welcome. It's our members who make the wheels turn on this 52 weeks of worship and religious education. The stories, the music, the ushers sharing the plate, all of the volunteers downstairs right now in religious education and who are going up after the service for forum and who will help out in coffee hour, who will be after church today in affinity groups and smaller circles. And that doesn't even say anything about all of our community members running our small groups during the week and our pastoral care and our finances and our social justice work and our presence in Milwaukee and our connection to Unitarian Universalism. All of this is created by you all. And it is you creating this that gives newcomers the space to experience what you experienced when you first walked in the door. This kind of connectedness is life-saving, literally life-saving, in an epidemic of loneliness and decreasing social connections, which is the reality across the United States right now. And it's created by the generosity of community members who show up and say, I'm going to give so that the person who comes after me can receive, just as I have received. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "It is possible that the next Buddha will not take the form of an individual. The next Buddha may take the form of a community practicing understanding and loving kindness, a community practicing mindful living. This may be the most important thing we can do for the survival of the earth. As human beings, we need community for our own individual survival. Our generosity creates community which feeds back and gives us what we need. But learning how to do community well, learning how to live together well, practicing loving kindness and living justly on this earth, that has the potential to give generously to survival more broadly. Practicing being human together, living in right relationship with one another and the earth, these are the skills that we need as a species for all of us and the earth to survive. May we give generously to build community for ourselves, for each other, for those that come next, and also with the hope of something more, the hope of that Buddha community, of a just and equitable, peaceful, sustainable human community in right relationship with the earth. May it be so.